Pizzanya aja. Hi, Prof.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are
Hello.
you,
How
Dr.
are you,
With
Prof?
the sound and everything.
Very nice. Good to see you. Yeah.
Let me.
Hi, Prof. Onditi. How are you?
I'm fine, Chairman.
Very,
And
very
Prof.
well.
Okayo, how are you?
Hi, Elias.
Hi.
Good. Peter, you've got the slides from Prof.
Yeah, I have the slide for Prof.
So you'll run the slideshow from your end.
My end, yeah.
Okay. I was going to send you an additional slide to display as people are waiting to join. Peter, you had sent Dr. Abajori the link for this as well, to join the. Okay, good. Peter, I've sent you the 2 slides I want you to display as people are joining. Seen that? It's basically the highlights of all the webinars we've done, and then advertising for the dinner.
Okay.
So the way we'll conduct this, Prof. Onditi,
yes, Chair.
You'll be the one to call the meeting to order. I think in the next, I hope Dr. Bajali will join us in the next 5 or so minutes.
Yes.
I'll just put in the chat that you're waiting for a few people to join. Then I think at 7:05 we'll just kick off, and you will invite, welcome everyone to the webinar, and then invite someone from NEC, I think it's Kigondu, to welcome people from NEC, and then Kigondu will be the one to invite Dr. Were to say a few things, and invite Professor Okayo to talk. Then I don't know if you have Dr. Abajoril's bio, so that you introduce him. email it to you just now.
Can Peter just run my slides? I see the.
Oh yeah, sure, Peter. Just run Prof's slide. That's actually the essence of this session.
Okay.
Emmanuel, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Very fine. Good to see you. And thank you for joining the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Sure. We're deeply honored, and thanks to you guys thanks to APHRC for the collaboration with this. So we have on this practice session, I have Professor Onditi, who is going to introduce you to the audience just before you speak. And I also have our keynote speaker, Professor Okayo, who is also the chair of the East Africa Medical Board. And the one that says KMA is Peter, who is our IT guy in the background. So what I'd want you to do just before we go live is to just try share your screen and run the slides. I think we can hear your voice, because that's the aim of this, to just test voice and screen sharing.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
Good. It's come across. Just try go to main slideshow, and it's running okay. Perfect.
All
Perfect. That's good. So just unshare that, and once Prof. Onditi introduces you after the keynote address, then you'll share the screen again.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you in St. Lucia or in Houston?
Me?
Yes.
I'm in Nairobi.
You're in Nairobi, yes, but I saw you worked a bit, you trained a bit in Queensland.
Yeah, I was in Harriston.
You're in Houston at the time. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm actually sitting in Chermside as we speak.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
good. Prof. Onditi, you have I've sent it to you on chat.
Peter, if I can just confirm with you that you will be running my slides from your end, and we need to just be in sync with one another to the extent possible.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Peter, I think Peter will be running Prof slides. Peter, you're okay?
Yeah, I'm good, Doc.
Good. So Prof will just tell you next slide, and you keep moving the slides. Yeah. Prof. Onditi.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, you've seen on the chat I've sent you.
Yes, I've seen
okay,
what to say.
Perfect. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
That will be just after Prof. Okayo finishes speaking. I was hoping Dr. Kigondu will be here with us to do the introductions, if he doesn't join, Profundity, you'll just call on me and I'll introduce Prof. Okayo.
Yeah. Yes.
Prof, I hope that
Noted.
is okay.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
It is okay. It is okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are 1 minute past the hour. I'm going to just take us to the live webinar so that people can start joining, and then we'll give them about 5 minutes before we start the meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So we are going live just now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now calling the meeting to order. I am Professor Onditi Elias, the Vice Chairman of the Research Standards and Ethics Committee of KMA. Welcome to another monthly lecture presentation on our series of CMEs and CPDs. I would like to call upon a National Executive Committee member, Dr. Kigondu, who is our Secretary General, National Secretary General, to tell us a few words before we begin. On to you, Dr. Kigondu.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Were, the president for Kenya Medical Association. I think Dr. Kigondo is moderating the session for today. I'll give the opening remarks so that you can begin the session. And then Dr. Kigondo will pick up with the moderation. So thank you, Professor Onditi and Professor Okayo, for this important topic as we sum up the year with the topic of piles and pitfalls in medical research and publishing. We've had a very enriching year from February with different topics discussed to build the capacity of doctors and healthcare professionals in the research so that you can come up with evidence-based kind of practice. So I think it's very commendable for the Ethics and Research Committee in collaboration with the East African Medical Journal under the leadership of Professor Okayo and our regular attendees. And with this, and I'm sure we'll pick up next year also, we will continue to move forward and build the capacity of KMA to become a go-to research organization by medical doctors in this country. So thank you so much to our panelists and our speakers for today. And I wish all of you a very good webinar session, and I hope we'll be able to take home a lot of learning lessons that can guide us as we move to the future. So thank you. Back to you, Professor Nditi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, I now wish to welcome our keynote speaker, who is Professor Stephen Okayo. He is the East African Medical Journal Board Chairman and also a public health specialist and an obstetrician and gynecologist and long-serving member of KMA. The topic is going to be pearls and pitfalls in medical research and publishing. Welcome, Professor Okayo.
Thank you, Elias, and good evening, everyone. I am glad to be here amongst you. I see some of my colleagues from the medical class of 1978, Dr. Julius is there. I'm really delighted that we are able to share for the next couple of minutes. Peter, could you just move the next slide? So on this first slide, I may already have fallen into 3 or 4 pits. They say that man gives meaning to images and words. The originator of this image, while he was developing the image, wanted to communicate the message of road rage. But I am trying to use this image to tell us the road towards excellence in scientific work. And I know some of you may have assigned your own meanings to this image. It would be wonderful to see what your interpretation other than those two are. If you could just spend a minute and put your thoughts in the chat, it will be good to know how you interpret that image. Next. The presentation is pretty straightforward. We look at some challenges, and so that when we look at solutions and innovations, we are able to align them. Of course, every session in time you get windows of opportunity, and I think the foregoing 3 or 4 years have provided a window of opportunity for scientific writing and publishing. Next. And just confirm to me that my voice projection is okay. Some of the challenges that are faced by authors and publishers, but particularly authors, is which journal do I submit to? Some authors may have language barriers. Some will have problems with article writing, grammar, and formatting. The peer review system might be complex for some of us with our short time. And of course, the publication cycle. And last but not least is providing equity in access. Next. This noisy slide provides additional areas of challenges, and I have not covered all of them, but these challenges can, some of the pitfalls that authors commit range from minor errors and mistakes to fraud, and quite frankly, some of them criminal in nature. There are fake news, fake reviewers, fake authors, and even fake publishers in the era of open access. And so they are numerous, but fortunately, there are guidelines that a discerning scientists can read and practice the guidelines, and they will be quite all right, and they will be on that road to milk and honey for scientific, for scholarly work. Next. The context that we are in now is that there is dramatic change in how data is communicated, even how data is interpreted. There is democratization of science, widely available on the internet. Some of these present challenges, but some of it are beneficial. Of course, fraud, plagiarism, quality standards, and authorship come into focus in the democratization of science on the internet. There is wide accessibility of big data, which permits meta-analysis and data mining for novel signages and commercialization. The quality standards, as I've alluded before, and sustained business models are therefore required to strengthen open access movement. Proceed. Peter, next. Of course, the COVID-19 disrupted science as it disrupted research. Statistically, there was a sharp rise in research outputs, particularly on coronavirus, but even on other subjects submitted to scientific journals. The rise in other subjects, some people have averred that or have postulated that because of the lockdown and scientists have remained indoors, they've spent relatively more time doing research, doing and writing on research. The Elsevier journal reported, for example, a 58 to 92% rise between 2019 and the year 2020. The pandemic has, in addition, fueled a sharp rise in sharing through preprints. For some of you may not know, preprints is articles posted online before peer review. The pandemic has also speeded up review process, and has brought about unparalleled collaboration between publishers. Next. According to one author, he summarized that the future of scientific publishing will be characterized by 4 things. The first one is antagonism within professional scholarly associations. There will be changes and innovations in the process of peer review. There will be movement around open access publishing, and there will be new professional niches in the publishing landscape. A question I pose to all of us is, will we be sitting on the fence watching these changes? Will we be cheering the changes on? Or will we actively engage in these changes? And Mr. President of KMA, forgive me if I assume that KMA wishes to actively engage in these changes. Next. So, on to the first innovation. There is a list of them that I'm going to walk you through. Innovations and solutions, some of them pretty grand and others on a small scale. So this space system is designed to capture, distribute, and preserve the intellectual outputs. This has been designed by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in collaboration with Hewlett-Packard Laboratories. This is freely available as open source software, allowing access through a search and retrieval system and providing long-term storage of scientific works. Next. The DSpace accepts all forms of digital materials, including documents, books, dataset, and computer programs. It allows institutions to preserve all of the digital information produced by its community of researchers and authors and makes it available in one searchable database. It is adaptable to meet the needs of organizations and allow the organizations to manage its own guidelines for submission. I have posted there the website which you can freely access for more information on DSpace. Proceed next. And this slide just shows the rise of users of DSpace, indicating the cumulative article downloads. Clearly, you can see it is rising and rising in the last 10, 12, 13 years. Next. The second one, innovation that I wish to share with you is the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resource Coalition, abbreviated as SPAC. This is a business model. It is broad and cost-effective access to peer-reviewed scholarships. SPACs is an alliance of universities, research laboratories formed in response to the unfavorable market for scholarly communication. SPAC promotes a competitive alternative to escalating journal prices, raises awareness, and serves as a public advocate for scholar-friendly publication on the principle that sharing knowledge is a fundamental human right. Next. Then we have Biomed Central. This is an independent publishing house committed to open access. Original research articles published by Biomed Central are permanently available and maintained online without a charge. Articles are peer-reviewed, remain the property of the author, and archived in PubMed Central. This is, you can, the website is just by pointing the words that are the name of Biomed Central. Next. The Biomed Central revenue is generated in part by a fee of $500 US charged for each accepted manuscript. Biomed Central is collaborating with many international members, and your website, again, I have posted there. You can click away and get additional detail. Institutional organizations, societies, or group of authors can apply to initiate a journal under their own editorial control using Biomed Central's free publishing format and technical expertise. Proceed. Number 4 is the Directory of Open Access Journal, or DOAJ. This is a partnership between SPARC, Open Society Institute, and Lund University Libraries in Sweden. DOAJ seeks to raise visibility, usability, and impact of open access scientific and scholarly journals. Peter, move to the next. Then number 5 is e-printing archives. This was created by Juan Paul Gispage, who is a physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico. It allows authors of physics articles to post their papers online. Scientists around the world access the archives to immediately find out about new developments and directions in research without having to wait for these to appear in hard copy journals. Next. Posting on the ePrint archive serves authors as an adjunct or an alternative to publication in a traditional physics journal. The archive contains thousands of papers in physics and related fields. I propose that medical specialists might consider replicating this practice to facilitate the immediate dissemination of new research ideas. Some of clinicians may get new ideas with each patient that they see with this surgery or any procedure they undertake. And they can replicate through this by passing the lengthy process of traditional publication. Next. Then we have Pub Library of Science, or PLOS, from University of California, Berkeley in San Francisco. This one supports open access concept from scientific publishers. That's it. Then there's Welcome Open Research Platform. This is an alternative open access model, involves the use of pre- and post-print archives and repositories. Authors can rapidly publish any research output they wish to share within days of submission, and is then evaluated through post-publication peer review. This online system could help many scholars accelerate the dissemination of their research. Again, you could just type in Welcome Open Research on your search window, and it will take you to their website. Next, step number 8. Then there is CodeOcean, a reproducible open science. CodeOcean platform generates a standard, secure, and executable research package called a capsule. The CodeOcean capsule format is open, exportable, reproducible, and interoperable. Each capsule is versioned and contains code, data, environment, and the associated results. Again, I have posted there the website, which you can click away and get additional information. Number 9 is eLife's new submission system. New, simpler, and more efficient submission system designed to save time. Authors simply upload a PDF of their manuscript, and the wizard makes use of eLife Science Beam open source extraction technology to lift the manuscript title, the abstract, and the author's list directly from the PDF. Real time saver, yeah? Number 10. Then there's the pre-review. This is peer review for preprints. Pre-review makes post-publication reviews a reality on a massive scale. and that has numerous beneficial side and network effects. Then we have what is called macro hubs or micro publications. As the name suggests, publish small bits of research, a paragraph or two, plus a figure or tablet or a table or two, maybe even a graphic, and do it quickly. The length of the publication process is measured in hours, days, and not months, as in the traditional publications. Next. Then you have meta. This concept uses natural language processing, which is a concept of mining, information mining, and other machine learning solutions with results presented in a user-friendly manner, is innovative and notable. Meta uses machine learning to guide researchers through discovering new relevant publications and exploring new concepts in the field, in whichever field that they choose. We have an equal list, probably again 12 to 13, which I have summarized a little bit more, which includes abstract digitization, infographics, Enago plagiarism and grammar checker, Stenciler, which is an open source office suite for reproducible research. We have Data Project, a protocol for research-centric data sharing that aims to solve this by providing an easy-to-use decentralized storage layer. Then you have JOS, Journal of Open Source Software, committed to publishing quality research software with zero article processing site charges or subscription fees. Next. Open Citation, which is open bibliographic and citation data. ProDit, a browser extension that enables verified through OSID, which is a digital identifier platform, endorsement of publications. This is a way to let other researchers know what you think is good science. You have PubPub, which is collaborative writing and publishing. ReScience, a journal for replicated computational research. You have FlashPub, fast micropublication, a platform for publishing very tiny bits of research very fast. Next. Reimagine Review is a whole database of peer review innovations. Docchielli is a decentralized article and annotation using linked data. SiteEye is a machine learning for determining research quality platform. Scholarcy, an automatic summarization of papers. Then you have BMJ Lab Megalist. This is a project in scientific publishing. This list links over 753 incredible, diverse projects. What a wonderful and great opportunity for collaboration. And these are my parting shots. Hit on next. We are looking at a threshold moment for access to scholarly information. It is with us now. The techno revolution is providing hitherto unavailable options. Resource constraints is driving creative strategies and legislation, while safeguarding integrity and availability. Only time will tell which solutions will thrive. Stakeholder engagement is a key determinant of the desired scholarly success. And as I've alluded before, as stakeholders, what part do you want to play in this threshold moment? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Okayo, for that very illuminating, informative, and presentation full of wealth and new innovations in research and publishing. More about that in the QA session that is oncoming. So keep your questions ready, ladies and gentlemen. The next presenter is Dr. Emmanuel Abajo, who is a postdoctoral research scientist from African Population Health Research Center. He's a scientist working with the maternal and child well-being unit. He manages the iPush project, which delves into maternal health care utilization through digital innovations to enhance universal health coverage. If you are ready, Dr. Abajo, over to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone here. Good evening. Yeah, my name is Emmanuel, as the Mr. Chairman has rightly introduced, and I'm an Ethiopian and a Pan-African by lifestyle. And of course, I'm not a postdoctoral research scientist, but I'm an associate research scientist, one level higher than the postdoctoral research scientist according to APHRC's scale. So this is a bit correction on your introduction. Okay, go on. Hello, I'm audible still?
Yes, you are still audible. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, Professor Okayo has presented everything, and I'm honored to be attendant of his presentation. And of course, I was initially invited to present on the topic of what Professor Okayo presented. And I prepared my presentation accordingly. However, I learned that this wasn't the case, and I was expected to share my experiences in scientific publications, which indeed complements the first topic, but the communication came very late and I couldn't prepare and present that in an organized manner. And having attended the presentation by the former speaker on the first topic, I would just like to add some few pointers in line with my experiences for the past 8 to 9 years in the research career. So as such, I would thank the presenter for his presentation, which indeed is enlightening and shares almost all my presentation and its contents had it been as planned. So I don't regret at all by rearrangement or reassignment assignment of the topic by the organizers. So having said so, let me add some pointers on what medical research entails and on few perils and pitfalls of scientific publication in general. So as such, I've seen a significant overlap between the contents of the presentation. So in other words, I won't present the whole PowerPoint, but few slides based on which I will share few of my experiences. I think that is in order, Mr. Chair. Okay, so what does clinical or medical research entails relative to others? So clinical or medical research, of course, can range from clinical trials and clinical interventions to observational epidemiological studies. And these clinical trials and clinical intervention studies are studies which meet the broad definition used by WHO for a clinical study, and clinical trials included. And that includes all studies collecting data from human participants. So the data can be, a response or interviews from participants on health and health-related conditions, or taking samples or sputum or stool, even imaging or biopsy from human participants. And clinical intervention also may include, drugs, vaccines, and procedures, maybe radiological or surgical procedures, and even diagnostic device, and so on and so forth. So this is one category of clinical or medical research, and the other is public health interventions or public health intervention studies, studies in which there is a public health intervention to promote or protect health or prevent ill health in communities as opposed to individual patients. So these are also the categories that we are considering as we call the concept of clinical medicine. The others are observational epidemiological studies, studies in which the researcher assesses outcomes in groups of human participants according to a research protocol, and in order to investigate the effect of lifestyle or behaviors or interventions that are part of routine care, but which are not influenced by the researcher. So as we talk of clinical or medical research, we should also, broaden our our outlook of what clinical study or clinical research entails. So what does publication path means? Obviously, these are practically relevant lessons that we learn through writing and the publication process. And these are a bit of information that are self-supporting and self-contained, but essentially interconnected to facilitate scientific writing and publication. So obviously, publishing is not a standalone activity, but is part of the research process from the conception of an idea to the publication of a manuscript. So as we talk of publication pills, we should also have that understanding. So after all, what comes is why we publish. Obviously, we publish for, generating evidence, generating interest, enhance greater understanding of topics, and also need for, there is an enhanced need for greater public health impact or clinical impact of our finding that should be enhanced through our publication. And nowadays is becoming a lifestyle for academicians or for researchers in the field. So it's a currency of academic research. After all, we are collecting data from, our patients or our participants. And as such, we have an ethical obligation to come or to reach out to them through publication and the implication of the data collected for that particular society. So these are some of the reasons why we publish. And nowadays, of course, it's very imperative for thriving in the field as a medical scientist. So we need publication for promotion, for grant writing, and so on and so forth. So Professor has said everything about that, but the publication piece or the so-called minimum publishable unit can be of empirical articles, that is coming from empirical data, can be of reviews, nowadays systematic or meta-analytic reviews. So these are meticulous reviews and the critiques on a given topic and providing the current state or the contemporary evidence on a given topic. And there can also be protocols for an ongoing study or for a planned study. And that can also be used to track the progress of that particular project. So overall, given the anticipation that our audiences have somehow of some know-how of writing a scientific medical research, I will not go to the ABCDs of this, but a given publishable unit or publishable manuscript should have these components, and each component has its own merits, and of course, which is also interconnected and can't stand alone as a single component if we need to publish a given publishable unit. So finally, we publish or perish. So this is an evolving concept, of course. So as researchers and scientists, we need to publish. otherwise we perish. That means we are losing the benefits that have already been mentioned in earlier slide. So publication is becoming a competition nowadays. And also, as Professor rightly stated, there are also unethical practices related with this publish and perish concept, including plagiarism and so on and so forth. So yeah, as such, there are some main pairs of scientific medical publication, one of which is familiarizing with the relevant literature. So that is very, very important. Working as a team is very important with professionals and allied professionals. And as we target, as we write journals or papers, we should also target our journals. So targeting journals means targeting audiences. So that is very critical. And the other, of course, is learning from the overall process of research writing, submitting, reviewing, and so on and so forth. And another important aspect is, of course, being a reviewer. So as a reviewer, if you become a reviewer for a particular paper, you will be looking your paper from the viewer, from the reviewer lens, not from the author's lens only. So that is very, very critical and one of the main pairs of scientific publication. So the final one, of course, according to my presentation, is identifying key role model in your scientific writing. So this is very critical. So who is or who are your key role models in scientific publication? Identifying such people, persistent and persistent added, really helps us to publish more. Just as my topic experience sharing, let me briefly share my story here. It was in mid-2013 when I was a junior postgraduate researcher from Black Lion Hospital of Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia, that an infectious and tropical medicine scientist called Professor Okayo, who was a professor at one public university and a state minister for Ministry of Science and Higher Education in Ethiopia until recently, shared his lived experiences in scientific publications for a small group of trainees, including myself. Even though time doesn't allow me to talk all those details, but he said this. He started his career by publishing his undergrad research project that grow oral or dental bacteria in his supervisor's lab. And by that time, he talked of this. He was about 20 years in his career, and he had about 80 publications, and he was in his mid-40s. So while sitting in that training room, I started calculating my age and my then current position, and decided to at least achieve what he had already achieved for his age. I then keep writing a small-scale proposals to my university and other local government or non-governmental organizations for fundraising to lead and undertake research projects, as well as to write and publish. That decision and commitment really helped me to easily get prestigious and competitive scholarships for my PhD at least. So, and I got 3 international scholarships in 3 different prestigious universities simultaneously, though I decided to choose the one in Australia just based on my personal preference. So now I have more than 118 peer-reviewed articles, where in most of which I am a leading or senior author, and I exceeded the achievement of my role model in less time and in younger age. So this is what we call a positive competition, and of course a positive influence, not competition, and why we are here tonight. So that is to make the continent a better place where its citizens enjoy the better standards of life through evidence-based practice, as well as evidence-based medicine and evidence-based policing. So selecting an ideal role model really helps. So yeah, and nowadays I'm working at APHRC, as I've said, as associate research scientist. And the final pearl, of course, is that rewriting, and rewriting. So that really sharpens our scientific writing skills and also publishing. So having said so what are the common pitfalls in scientific writing? Of course, key pitfalls are faced along the cycle of the research that Professor has nicely presented, and the cycle that I've showed somewhere in the slide. So rejection is the main pitfall, but the rejection itself has so many reasons. One of which is that incompetent, inaccurate, and outdated review of a literature on the top of so many other reasons. So this and others are the pitfall of publication, especially in our setup. And most importantly, inappropriate resource management and use and non-inclusion are the main pitfalls for us as African scientists in general, not only medical scientists. So in this, we can talk, for example, of bias, or which can be multifaceted or systematic bias or personal bias. One of which, of course, is the 25-75 disparity in the language of publication, as Professor has rightly said. So merely 25% of the world's population reads, writes, or speaks in English, though 75% of the scientific publications are in English globally. So this really is one of the main barriers for accessing research outputs for scientists so that they advance their career. So this is very serious, and along with other systematic biases. So let me share my current experience on this very briefly, of course, on a personal bit. So I was going to present a paper on indirect health effects of COVID-19 for a conference jointly organized by African CDC, African Union, and one other organization from the global north. And the paper used data from one of our ongoing projects here in Kenya and managed by APHRC. And we are among the PIs and the co-PIs. So the conference scientific committee plans to publish this paper in the Journal of Public Health in Africa, which will be officiated during this event. So here is the bias I'm talking about. One of the PIs from the global north gives a straightforward order for us not to publish or not to submit in this journal, yet inviting us to present this paper in this event just for the sake of her project, the visibility of her project. So imagine the data is from Africa. Most researchers are Africans, but the paper is denied of the right to be published in African journal. You know, well, so for me, this is nonsense, if not being arrogance or hypocrisy. So this is very, very, very critical that African scientists need to handle. So the other, of course, is inclusion. So inappropriate resource management versus inclusion. So lowly equipped resources, research infrastructure, obviously restricts innovation for research and development, as Professor rightly said. So brain drain comes here. So even though is needless to talk about where and for whom African elites or scholars are working for. So systematic and structural hindrances to research and development, including negligence and corruption by our own government, contributing for intergenerational brain drain and contributing for a vicious cycle of continental drain. So this is something that we should also handle or try to handle, of course, as African researchers. And the other is lack of diversity and inclusion, obviously, which is part of the systematic bias, and leading us to throw our workers, even though, very costly workers, to the so-called fishy predatory journals. That means if we throw our papers here to escape from the above mentioned barriers to publication, our effort becomes useless. So that is very, very critical as African researchers, for which we should be organized and try our voices to be heard for relevant stakeholders pertaining to our continent. So the basic question is that what needs to be done? So once I've said, resource for research and development is the first and foremost thing that we should consider if we really are responsible to produce next generation African scientists. And as such, we decolonize scientific publication and make impactful research visible and accessible to African researchers, policymakers, clinicians, and so forth and so on. So as Professor rightly said, for this to happen, the fairer principle should be implemented. That is, the research and publication or published output should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So here is the concept of metadata lies, as Professor Okayo rightly said. So as such, this promotes that articles that can exist in several different versions. It promotes articles that are interrogated and commented on interactively as well as in public. And it can also promote articles that can be linked electronically to the authors via permanent identifiers, and also promotes articles that are linked to, underlying data, that is empirical data. And it passes to the next generation scientists to experiment and to validate on disprove or approve or whatever. So that is very critical. So having said that, this is my last slide, I think, on which from which I shared. I shared this slide from one of the presentation by Vitae Institute, which was chaired by African Academy of Sciences in September. So you can see, so we have been talking about the resource and the resource constraints for African scientists. And of course, to develop this T-shaped model, they collected data from African scholars all across the continent. And you can see where we can invest in terms of the breadth as well as the depth of the research expertise that Africa need in terms when it comes to research leadership. So yeah, investment is very, very critical if we need to produce the next generation of African scientists. And that is my last slide. Thank you very, very much. Over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel. Emmanuel Abajobir, for those great ideas in research and development in Africa and the creation of the next generation of African scientists for the global good. Now, I call upon the KMA Research Chairman, Dr. Obonyo, and Dr. Yonga, the Acting Editor-in-Chief of the EAMJ, to conduct the QA session. Chairman, Dr. Obonyo.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Onditi, and thanks to the two speakers, Professor Okayo and Dr. Abajobir. I think Dr. Kigondo should be moderating the session. Kigondo, are you online? I'm not sure if you've gotten any questions that have come across, or what I could probably do is just kickstart off the discussion session. I think we've had very interesting talks this evening, and I really want to thank the two speakers. One of the important things as the KMA Research Committee is why do we conduct research? And I might just share my screen if I'm allowed to by the moderator. Peter, can I share my screen? Good. I hope that's projecting. So these are some of the things that the presenters have already talked about professional growth. There's a moral, ethical obligation, current awareness, and all that. But the important thing is to just say that research is not complete until it finds a home in a publication. And for us as members of KMA, I think we are very lucky. We have a journal that's probably older than any of us in this call or members of KMA. This was established in 1923. No one is going to come from, the global north or wherever, for that matter, to build this journal. It's upon us to build this journal for ourselves. We do quite a bit of research within our medical circles. Everyone who undertakes postgraduate training is expected to do a dissertation or thesis. And this is data that is collected in a systematic manner. It's research that's conducted. My only hope as within the research committee of KMA is that most of the research that gets conducted locally finds its way into into a journal, and we do have a home as KMA, the East African Medical Journal, where we can publish our papers. I want to just invite Dr. Yonga at this juncture. But before I do so, we've had very good feedback with this webinar series that we've been running with the East African Medical Journal. Like as Professor Onditi had said from the beginning of the year, and the president has also alluded to this, we've had managed to have a session each month, except in June when we had the scientific conference, and we've gotten very good feedback in terms of what topics people would be interested in that you can look into in the new year. Some of these things like medical statistics, I think, would be extremely boring and difficult to deliver in a webinar in an evening, and we are thinking of developing this into a course that can be delivered more effectively, either through a workshop session. In closing, if there is any other feedback that anyone wants to give to the KMA Research Committee or the East African Medical Journal, we are more than open to receive this, and we'll try as best as possible to incorporate this. I mean, the association is only as strong as good as the membership making its contribution. I want to invite Dr. Yonga to just make a few remarks as well, and I want to start off by probably just showing this paper that was published in Frontiers Medical Journal. This was conducted by a group of researchers here in Kenya, Professor Atwoli, Dr. Kwamba. It was published in the Frontiers series of journals. One of the things that the Frontiers series of journals has done that is really good, and I think we should be considering doing this within the East African Medical Journal, is in as much as the peer review process is blinded, the people reviewing your paper or your articles don't get to know who you are, and you don't get to know who has reviewed your paper while the process is ongoing. When it goes to publication, you have the paper published, and you can see there it shows who exactly reviewed the paper. I think this is becoming really important as we think about some of the things that we've talked about in the course of the year, where Professor Jaoko eloquently presented on scientific misconduct and retractions. And I know during COVID, there's been very serious implications of research being published in very high impact journals that ended up being retracted as a result of data being fabricated. And I think this is something we should really consider as East African Medical.
Dr. Paul Yonga.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that eloquent presentation. Sorry, I think my internet was hanging a bit. So thank you very much to all the speakers for the wonderful presentations. Thank you so much, Prof. Prof. Okayo, and thank you so much, Emmanuel, for those brilliant presentations. And thank you so much, Mchafatso, for setting the scene. I think this year for the East African Medical Journal has been a very exciting year in our collaboration with the KMA Research Committee, whereby I think there's been exciting feedback coming from the membership, as well as some of the authors who submit articles to the EAMJ. I think over the last 4 years since I've sat on the editorial board of the East African Medical Journal, I think there's been a lot of enthusiasm, I think, from the continent on really wanting to publish with the East African Medical Journal, and this has been very exciting. Maybe just to touch on just one or two practical issues in the next 2 minutes. Emmanuel mentioned something to do with some of the pitfalls with regards to medical publishing. And one of them is really the issues of the methodological errors that some authors present experience while submitting articles to the journal. What I would highly suggest is that because you find that sometimes papers are presented for publication, but no one has really gone through the rigors of assessing how that paper is to be reported. So for example, you'll be reporting a cross-sectional study, but you're reporting it that will probably say a qualitative method was used in reporting. Of course, it makes the entire paper quite confusing to the reviewer. And you see some of those small things can get your paper rejected. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is that as much as possible, you sit down with your fellow co-authors to be able to, before you submit it to the journal, it's good to really figure out what method was used, what was the clinical or public health problem that you are trying to address, what research question were you trying to answer, because that helps you in figuring out the study design that will help you in answering that research question and also help you in the study methodology. The second thing is that sometimes some results are presented which are not very understandable. So you find some figures are presented and the confidence intervals or some of the percentages being presented do not tally with what was presented in the abstract, or then do not even tally with what the method that was used. So some of those things, if possible, please kindly also liaise with your biostatistician or someone to be able to put some of those things into context, because within the editorial board of the East African Medical Journal, one of the things we really want to minimize on is rejecting papers. So if some of those things can be kept at the back of our minds as authors, then it makes the reviewers' work very easy, and it makes it much more less taxing to the author to keep responding to comments that would have been easily been addressed while the paper was being formulated. And then the third thing is really, and I think this one I've belabored, I think during most of the talks that we've had as the East African Medical Journal, is that before you submit a paper, please take some time and read the instructions to authors, because it becomes very painful when you've written a paper worth 3,000 words and the entire referencing has been done all wrong. Probably you referenced using the Harvard's system of referencing, but the East African Medical Journal, just like any other medical journal, mostly uses Vancouver. So that makes your work again much more, it takes you really back to square one, which is something you'd have easily addressed just by taking maybe 2 or 3 minutes to read the instructions to authors. So I personally, I think I sync completely with what Emmanuel has presented in his presentation. And I think that is something that as authors, we should really take cognizance of. Otherwise, thank you very much. And I'll let the discussion go on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yonga. Thank you, Dr. Obonyo. There is one question from an anonymous attendee. It reads as follows. I have my postgraduate MEd thesis successfully defended in 2013. That I have not published am I too late to do so? Professor Okayo, can you answer that question?
I will answer half of it,
Yes.
and I would invite the editor-in-chief to have the final word. It depends. There is no straightforward yes or no. It depends. If what was studied and the statistics thereof have not changed in the 8 years of that work, then I think it would be fair to go ahead and accept it for publishing. But if in 8 years there are some facts and information and data that have undergone change after another, in which case what was obtained 8 years ago might not be relevant at the moment. So this is exactly what it is that the person studied. Feel free to contradict.
Yeah, Dr. Yonga, he left the other half of the question to you. Could you add your answer?
Yes. I think in fact, I think Prof mentioned that he's going to answer half, but probably he's literally answered the entire question. Because ideally that is the case. If you if you did the work in 2013 and the science still is relevant to date, then definitely I would encourage the person who asked the question to really submit it for possible review and publication. However, if the article was published, if the work was done and focused on an area which is rapidly evolving and probably rendered the current science that was done in that time irrelevant, then it may be a bit difficult to undertake such reviews unless additional work is undertaken to really progress or additional data is added to that study to make it current. That will be possible. But I think at the moment, I think it's just up to the author to reevaluate his or her work that was done at that time and see whether it tallies with the current needs of modern science to date.
Thank you, Dr. Yonga. That brings us to the next stage, which is the closing remarks and vote of thanks from the Assistant Secretary General, Dr. Diana Marion. Over to you, Diana. Dr. Marion, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Over to you.
Good evening to everyone in attendance. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for being here. I want to really appreciate the presenters, and I also want to appreciate the whole team for what they have done for the entire year. We've really learned a lot. I think we've really made a lot of people ask questions about what is available to others in terms of publications, in terms of the challenges they face, and throughout the series that have been put forward, we've really learned a lot. I appreciate the attendees for sparing this time and being here with us. And therefore, let me take this opportunity to thank all of you and to wish you a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. We are looking forward to the next CPD, and have a nice evening, all of you, till we meet again. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. That was great.